use Photopea to colour in this linear drawing that I have here. Firstly, I'm just going to thicken all the lines, because if we zoom in, you can see that some of the lines are a bit less obvious, a bit less bold, and a bit less consistent. Some are very dark, some are a little bit grey. So we're just going to make the lines all a bit more consistent to improve the quality. So if I just zoom out a bit, so we can see our preview, we just go to Filter, Other, Minimum. And here Photopea is preset to thicken up the lines to 8 pixels. It's a bit too thick, we've lost some definition. So I'm just going to go and change it to 2. I'll make sure I've done 2, not 80, 2.0. And I'm going to make it a circular shape instead of a square shape for the pixel, and say OK. So now I've uniformed the image a little bit. All the lines are a bit thicker and stronger and bolder, and they should be able to hold the colour a lot better. So I need to colour the image now using a paint bucket tool, but before I can do that I need to make sure that all my pixels go to the edge of the image, and I also need to check that there's no gaps, because if you have a gap anywhere, paint will run through that gap. I'll just show you what I mean. So I just did Control plus to zoom out on the image. I might just do Control minus to zoom in on the image, sorry. So if you look here, you can see that these lines don't go all the way to the edge of the picture. So if I was to click here to fill with colour, the colour will go over the top of this line and spill into this space. So it's important that there's no gaps, that areas are contained. I'm just going to use the crop tool to make sure that my image is all up to the boundary. So I'm just going to use the crop to pull that top edge down, and I'll do the same for all the other edges. So I'm just going to crop again to this edge. So you might have to zoom in to make sure you've done it exactly to the right area. Also down here, if you think you can see from far away, just do it like that. If you prefer to zoom in to be a bit more precise, then it's a good idea, because we don't really want to lose any of the picture. I'm just going to pull that out and do that bit on a zoom in. Okay, so Control plus here, and I'm going to move over using the space bar and just crop to this edge a bit more closely so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, that's better. So there might be some blemishes on your image before you start colouring that you'd like to get rid of. For instance, this line here that was created by 2 bits of paper being next to each other in real life when we created the image. This can be got rid of really simply. If I just choose a white foreground colour, because I've got a white image here, and choose the brush tool, then I can just simply paint over any sections that I don't want to be there. So you might have bits like this section here where I've rubbed out a little bit in real life and it's created some blemishes on the paper that you could get rid of. So spend time touching the image up. You may also find that some of your shapes aren't fully contained, so maybe this shape here might have had a gap in it. I could just make a gap in it to show you what I mean. So when you were drawing, you might have created a sort of space like that in your object. So what you would need to do is to get yourself either a thin paintbrush or a thin pencil, and make sure you're drawing with the same colour that your outline is in the image. So I'm going to draw with black, and 15 pixels looks like it's going to go on at the size of this circle that's here. So I could just simply reconnect. It's a bit of a messy line, but reconnect the lines together to make sure that that's a contained shape. So that's something that you could do if you can see any obvious gaps in your image. I'm just actually going to go back to the point before I ruined it. Okay, so now we're going to use the paint bucket tool. That could be hiding behind the gradient tool, but most likely is on show. And it will paint with the foreground colour, whatever colour is here. So to change that colour, you can choose from any of these colours here, and we'll say OK. In this particular image, I've got shapes that need to join up to make the whole picture. So this space, for example, is the same object as this part that's here, so I need to make those colours the same. So you basically just click in the area that you want that colour to be. So this pen is part of this pen over here. So you just go through the image filling in the colours that you need to fill in, and it's always good to sort of distribute colours evenly in an image for artistic purposes. So I'm kind of spreading the pink around the picture, and the paint bucket will spill wherever the tip of the arrow is. So if you put the tip of the arrow actually on the line, it will fill the line, so just be careful to make sure you fill the space. So try and choose colours that go well together. I'm going to fill in maybe the background with this colour. And remember that if you have contiguous ticked, I'm not sure I showed you that actually, I don't think I showed you, you need to make sure that contiguous is ticked. I will show you what happens if you untick it. So if I was to click in this white gap here, you may think that it might just fill in this ruler. If I just show you, it actually fills in all the white that was left in the picture. So it's looking for everything in the whole picture that's the same colour as the pixel I clicked on. Whereas if I have contiguous ticked, then it only fills to the boundary of that space. So I'm clicking in this white space and it fills just to the boundary. So it's really important that you have contiguous ticked, else you'll think it's not working, but really it's just because of the way the computer fills it in. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one more trick. So let's choose yellow. I'm going to fill this space in and then a couple of others, and I'll show you how to re-choose a colour that you've already used before in case it's necessary. So I've just filled this in and I've realised I might like to fill something else in this pink. To choose this pink, I go on the colour picker and then I just simply target an area in the picture by clicking on it. And you'll see that it's now selected that colour that was in my image. So you can use it to select particular colours that you would like to use again. So I'm going to show you now how to repeat this image. Just going to save. We'll do File, Export as JPEG. Imagine the whole thing is coloured in. So it's the same process, just clicking and filling. Any gaps that appear or become obvious, you need to fill them in so that you can fill just the space you want to work on. So we've saved, we're going to File, New, and we're going to get a space to work on. This is an A4 page and it's been made into a square that fits on an A4 page at 200 dots per inch. That's fine for what I want to do. So now I'm going to go to, I'll get my background layer. I seem to have two layers in there. Okay, so I can now select this image I have been doing it another way, but it was taking all the crops in, so I'm going to try this. Edit, copy, new project. So we're going back into the blank paper, edit, paste. And hopefully it's just taken my selection. Have to wait a second. Sometimes that way doesn't work. Okay. Oh, it did move, it did work. Okay, so this is very large in this image, so it's gone on far too big, but you can see that it's definitely on top. So what's happened is this image has a higher resolution than this one here. So we just need to shrink it to fit. So we'll just do edit, transform, scale. That's one way to find it. Although you can't see the boundary box because it's outside, so I'm just doing Control minus to zoom out, and then we can see the boundary box. I'll just hold down Shift and pull that in, and then we should be able to move it back onto the page. It's still too big. You can do Control minus, Control plus to see what you're doing. I want to be able to fill this 4 times on the page, so I'm holding down Shift and dragging on the corner. Okay, I think I will be able to fit 4 in with it that size. So I'll just place it and click the tick. So we're saying yes to that transformation. You can also hit return to say yes to the transformation. So now we're going to be on the move tool. I might have to actually nudge it to the corner because I might not fit 4 on. And then if I hold down Alt GR, which is to the right of the spacebar, it makes a copy of my layer. There's other ways to do it, and then you can move it around with the mouse to get it in position. You can also use the cursor keys for more precise placement. If it looks like it's not going to line up, maybe try moving it out a bit. It depends on the level of skill involved in actually making the image in the first place. You just have to line it up as best you can. The best fit. It might not line up precisely, you just have to see. So, okay, there's a little bit of a jolt in that, but that's pretty good. So we go Alt GR, and then try and push it up next to itself, and Alt GR again. Okay, I might have to move this one over. So try and identify where they are by the position in the screen. So this one is that one, which needs to move over a little bit. So I'm using the cursor keys to move it over. Okay, so we can save that. You can merge the layers first. So if you're happy with the placement of them, only do it when you're happy with the placement of them. Click on the layers, hold down Control, and then right click when all the layers are selected and say merge layers. Now we can mess with colours really easily. Image adjustments, hue saturation. Pull on the hue, it will change all the colours in the picture. So you can see different combinations that you haven't tried. If you see one you like, just say OK. You don't just have to mess with hue. You can mess with saturation, that will grey it out a little bit, or make it more vivid and more intense. I quite liked it on the greyed out. And you can make it lighter or darker. So when you get to the point where you like it, you just say OK. And what's really good about digital editing is that you can save different versions of the same thing. So we're just going to go to File, Export as JPEG. So we're saving this version as one that we liked. And then there's another way that you can edit. If you do Image, Adjustments, Replace Colour. So I don't like this orangey colour, so I want to change just that. So I'm going to click Hue, which is asking me which colour do you want to change. So I'm going to click on the orange in my picture and say, okay, I don't want that colour. So I can then move this around to choose just a different colour for that part. So I can move across the whole colour spectrum. I can lighten or darken colours down and say, okay, I quite like it at this tone, but I want it to be more intense. So just move these around to get what you like and say okay. And again, this time save again and keep saving as JPEGs all the different versions that you end up creating so that you can compare afterwards.